Taking a deep breath, Chip opened the last door of the clubhouse. Then he gasped. The room was completely empty. Stunned, he walked to the corner of the room where a table stood. A sketchbook lay on the table. Several sheets had been torn out of it, and crumpled balls of paper filled the wastebasket. Chip finally understood why Melinda had kept these levels a secret. The last one had not been completed. I've got to help Melinda make this level, Chip said to himself, lifting a pencil. Then dejectedly he put it down. But how? I've never designed any levels, he thought. Then his face brightened. But I've played lots of them. I'll build a level from my memories, and I'll make it a level to remember. Through the night, Chip worked hard to fill the level with pieces of just about every kind of puzzle that he could think of. And when Melinda walked in the next morning, she was surprised and delighted at what she saw. Why, Chip, she beamed. This is just amazing. Thank you so much. You're welcome, Chip mumbled bashfully as she wandered around the level admiring his work. Swallowing hard, he decided that the time had come to ask the question that had haunted him throughout the night. Melinda? Chip began. Yes, Chip? Melinda asked. There's something I've been meaning to ask you, said Chip. Their eyes met. Chip stepped up to where she was standing and got down on one bended knee. Then, picking up the hammer that he had left lying on the floor there, he asked, How the heck do you hammer a panel into place without bruising your thumb? It's an acquired skill, Melinda replied, smiling. She walked through the door. Would you like to join me for lunch? She asked. I'd be glad to, Chip replied. What time? Just as soon as you finish solving this level, Melinda replied with a twinkle in her eye as she stepped outside and locked the door behind her. Welcome back, everybody, to the final episode of Let's Play CCLP3. I decided to save this level for the end because, honestly, I do want to spend some time after it talking about CCLP3 and my overall thoughts about it. And I also kind of wanted to make sure I took my time on this one because there's a lot of little references here that are pretty interesting, and I'm probably even going to forget about quite a few of them. But this level is meant to be a level that's filled with a lot of pieces of other levels. It was originally designed as the capstone level of my own set, which back in the day was called JL1. And for lack of a better way of putting it, I decided to just put a bunch of pieces of levels that I had played, and most of them were my own. But I did borrow a few things from some other levels, including official levels, just to reference them. Of course, there were only 2 official sets available at the time, so I was kind of limited. But I decided to put in the beginning of CCLP2, A Fleeting Memory, which you can see in this first room, and then the end of CC1, Special, which we'll see at the very end. So I thought that would be kind of cool to put the beginning of one set as the beginning and the end of another set as the end. So we start off here. This room here is meant to be a reference to a level I made called, I think it's called Before the Rainstorm. It's meant to be the layout of after the rainstorm, but before any water got into it, that kind of thing. And here, you have to figure out how to extract both blocks, which is not really that hard. Just put them in a configuration like this. And we're going to eventually get to more of those. But first, let's do some more exploring. We can try to go down here, but that's useless, so yeah. This bug area is meant to be a reference to another level I made called Deliverance. And then we have a tank puzzle, which I think is meant to be a reference to Floating Plaza with the way this is set up. The idea is that you're really not supposed to hit the tank button yourself. You want to preserve the tank on the right, but you also want to get rid of the bomb on the left and get the block through. So I want to get a block through the tank button, much like I did in both Floating Plaza and Color Wheel. The same sort of situation is true for this area over here. The trap that you see over on the right there, we have to go through that, so we have to make sure the ball does not die right away. So yeah, a lot of tricky little things here to keep in mind. But thankfully this is not. This teeth thing right here is pretty easy. I originally made this to be solved such that the both of the teeth need to be preserved, but then I completely forgot that you didn't really have to do that. So yeah, I'm not exactly certain what the point of that was. If I were to release this glider, then that would just cause more balls to be cloned, and we don't want that. That's eventually where we want that tank to go. We can't push a block in there and get out alive since we don't have suction boots. And then over here, we have a section that's meant to resemble old Frog's force floor room area thing. Yeah, that's a sentence. And we have the option to get fire boots. I'm going to grab one pair. As we learned in Mud Pie, we don't want to get boots that we don't need. Pushing that up just causes it to slide on ice off of a real thin wall. And then over here, we have what we need to set up in order for this whole toggle thing to work. So you can see right here that eventually I'm going to need to go into the red key area and everything. If I remember correctly, what I need to do is I need to block slide this and then open up the toggle, I think. I'm trying to remember this section. Anyway, I'll leave it there. I'll figure it out once I get back to the other side. In the meantime, we can actually go and uncover all this stuff. I don't know what this was meant to be a reference to, if anything. Maybe it's nothing. It's been a while. Like, I don't remember what all my favorite levels were at the time. I think this was kind of meant to be a Tom Rao kind of general design style thing with blocks and tricky paths you had to bridge out to and stuff like that. If that thing is your style, I highly recommend his set because he's really good at designing stuff like that. And I think I managed to lose this because I needed to preserve. Yeah, I needed to actually not do what I just did there. That was really stupid. So the idea is that you're supposed to go up this column and then eventually use the other three blocks to go down to, or the other blocks to go down there to the chip. I was being silly. All right, let's start over. So when we were ordering levels on the CCLP3 staff, this level was one of the top-rated fun levels, and a lot of people really wanted it to be the last level. Personally, I wanted Recurring Dream to be the last level, but then ModHob was like, no, that's going to be an odd level to end with. I personally thought Recurring Dream was the stronger level, and that was poorly handled. So yeah, I thought Recurring Dream was pretty awesome, and I liked that more than this level, at least at the time. It's funny, I feel like I've kind of grown to appreciate more of these levels I made for CCLP3 as time has gone on. I still don't like some of them. What's a good example? Maginot Line comes to mind. To Catch a Thief to a certain extent comes to mind. Divide and Conquer is another level that I feel like was just redundant and just not very interesting. And then, you know, there were some levels that, design-wise, they were okay. I'm thinking mostly of 4x4. But gameplay-wise, they were just kind of meant to be giant monster manipulation fests. Oh, and who can forget Think Tank? I mean, that's probably the epitome of my level designing lunacy, and that was interesting slide delay. Okay, let me get the mouse out of the way. That might help. So the idea is that we can push the remaining blocks up, or the remaining block out through up there. And I'm just going to cheat and do that because why not? Alright, so I remember now what we have to do for the tank button. There's a toggle wall in front of it, and the purpose of getting the block on the block side was to make sure that when we open the toggle wall, there was still, the ball was still able to clone. There we go. Alright, so now I can actually loop around and do this. So that's nice. Of course, we now have a little bit of an issue. I don't think we really do we? I'm trying to remember how we push it up and then get it out again, because oh, wait, I think we have to retrieve it after the fact. And then let me do this bit. let me do this. Okay, so now we're ready to go over here to this side. Okay, good. I managed to not clone another one. Not that you really have to worry about that, but I just didn't want to clone another one. Alright, I'm going to push that there so I can retrieve it. And so now I go up here. So then I go over here, and now we get probably the second really annoying part of the level, which is, well, or I guess you could say this is the first one. The whole ball thing with the block wasn't that bad. And, excuse me, you have to queer these chips. And that was not the best way to do that. Yeah, okay. I'm going to have to really be careful with this now. But the whole idea is that you're supposed to stagger these balls such that you can make it through without any problem. And this was meant to be a reference to a level I game show, which was meant to resemble like a series, like an obstacle course thing, if you know what I mean. And this is going to be a little bit hairy to go through now. But I don't think it's that bad. Okay. There we go. So now we're going to have to face the crazy task of actually turning this guy around. Okay. Go. So now I get to go up here and then... Oh, this is going to be bad. Yeah, I'm not really a big fan of the way this ended up. I should have pushed the block in here first. Why did I not do that? That was stupid. Okay. That's more like it. Okay. I'm just going to time this well. There we go. Alright, that is much better. And I think that's actually pretty manageable now. So now we got all the blocks pushed in here. And we can see right here that we're eventually going to need to come through and push this block over here so that we can make it back through this passage later on, because we're going to have to go down through that recessed wall. But I'm not going to do that yet. I still have some unfinished business up here with this. So we need to do this before we actually let that cloning stop. So this area here, that's meant to be kind of a creative one-ways kind of thing, although I don't know if I had that level in mind when I designed it. I'm just going to pause buffer this because... Wait a minute. Do I have to... Oh, wait a second. It's... I'm trying to remember exactly what I had to do here. Because I know I have to go and get the... This is meant to be a reference to Freezer, by the way. Oh, right. I need to actually go and do... I need to destroy that bomb. There we go. Okay, so now I don't get the fire boots because I don't want to lose them before I get through all this stuff. Do that. Now I get the fire boots. Okay, we're good. Alright, so now that that's done, we can now go back through here. And then we can actually stop all of this cloning. And I think the best way to do this really is just go back through here. There we go. Okay, so now that's done. Now we can actually retrieve this block again. And I'm going to go ahead and push it back through. I don't need to worry about tanks anymore. And I'm going to go ahead and push it over there. So now we have exactly 3 blocks left for the last chip down there. Okay, so I think at this point we've done mostly all we can do. But there is still this issue. Well, there's a couple of things I can show you. One of them is over here in the Japanese game show room. And that is this area. So this area is meant to be a reference to a Tom Rao level called Cold Gray Morning. And it had this ball section that was tantalizingly teasing the exit area. But the thing is that you couldn't actually get over into this without blocking something up. And I don't think there was a way to do that in that level. But here I decided to adapt the puzzle and basically put this arrangement here and then put a block. And this block is actually on a real blue wall. So if I push it, I can only push it once. And the correct way to push it is left and to trap that ball. Because right now you cannot get through both the second ball and the third ball. It's just not possible. So I'm going to leave this room for later. Alright, and then I still have an issue over here. Because right now... Wait a minute. Why did the cloning stop? Well, that's odd. Oh, the teeth monster. Right, okay. So I'm going to go ahead and just push that there. You can see, though, that we're going to start a cloning cycle of some sort, so we don't actually want to go through that. I'm trying to remember why you couldn't really go through here. I know there was a reason why you couldn't do it. Oh, right, because you don't want to go through here because eventually, when you start the cloning cycle, you want to outrun what's being cloned. So you want to get rid of the suction boots here, but you need the suction boots to even get in here and push that. So the right thing that you have to do is you have to go up this way and then use your red key on this and then get your boots taken away. Alright, so now we're bootless, and this is where the second pair of fire boots comes in really handy, because we need that to get back through... Oops. Well, that's a problem. Let's go through here. Alright. Second pair of fire boots. We get this, and so now we can go into this room. So, this room is basically meant to be a reference to Old Frog. With this toggling thing here, this arrangement in the middle. It's not the exact same thing, but it's meant to resemble it. Except now instead of a teeth, we have a ball cloner to contend with now. So now we get a block. And now we can get this. And we can start some cloning when we want. And I'm going to put this guy there, and this one, let's put him there for now. So now we can go through here and push this. And much like the end of Old Frog, we have to make sure that the fireball cloner doesn't spew anything out. There we go. So I'm gonna safely pause buffer that, which thankfully wasn't an issue. And so now we can go across here. You saw that there was a trap button there earlier, so now we can go through and into a room with a paramecium. I don't really know what this is meant to resemble. I guess it's just a generic paramecium thing, but this does allow us access to this, so that's taken care of now. And now we have a section here that's meant to resemble mental blocks, except this time we need to actually switch paths midway because we have this little trick here. So this will allow us to go back like this. And so now we begin the cloning, and we have to be really careful here to step off. And now we can slip back through. So now we have a couple of chips left to get. We have the one that's over here, which thankfully we can get now through this thief over in this direction. And then we have the one to bridge to, neither of which are really difficult to get. Alright, so all of this involves is just pushing the blocks down through this. No big deal. A little bit of slide delay, but no big deal. Alright. So that concludes Mr. McCallahan Presents. And here at the very end, you don't need the fire boots, but they could help later on, a reference to paranoia. And here's the special reference. The exit is under this block. You could get the fire boots and risk it and then push these blocks. This one has fire underneath it like Special did, but if you know where the exit is, that definitely helps. So that is the end of CCLP3. We survived every level. And what a journey it has been. Overall, my opinion of the set is rather mixed. I've kind of been reviewing that gradually throughout the Let's Play, but it really was a product of its time, you know, like CCLP2 was. I know I use that term a lot in relation to CCLP2, but in reality, CCLP3 was as well. And a lot of people who are in the community right now don't really know this. If you're a part of the general Chips Challenge community, if you're not, I highly encourage you to go to CC Zone and check it out. If you're interested in the game, it really is fun. And even if you're not interested in the game, it's cool. But back in that day, this was the era in which everyone was just really anxious to get a level in an official set after CCLP2. And just looking back at the way level design was back then, I honestly feel like there was kind of this game of one-upsmanship when it came to designing stuff. Now, granted, there is still a little bit of healthy competition, but back then, there was just such a degree of taking it to the next level, so to speak. So, in other words, this was the time when all the bugs were pretty much cataloged and discovered, and people were just doing whatever they could just because they could, not necessarily because it was the best gameplay idea or because it was the most friendly thing to a player. And it was just this constant outdoing and outdoing and outdoing. And I think in the midst of all of that one-upsmanship, it's really difficult to keep sight of what a normal person who's not ingrained in that would want. And that's pretty much the problem I think this set faced from the get-go. So when we started voting, there was already this, and when we started production of the set, there was already this sense of, we've waited 7-8 years for this thing, and it better be good. Like, it better have awesome levels. It better be crazy difficult to optimize just so that we can hold ourselves over until the next official set comes out, because who knows how long that one's going to take. I mean, I think there was kind of this air of cynicism about the whole thing by the time it started. Even though we were all excited, we didn't want to make the sets, something that we would just play and forget about. And looking back on it, I think that wasn't exactly the best mindset to have. And it really set the stage for what I think were a lot of staff decisions on my part that really weren't the best. And one of them, I think, was the decision to try to stick to the voting results as much as possible. Now, I believe that when you do a community-produced set like this, you should listen to the community. I think that is, it's the spirit of the thing. I think that's a good idea. But I also believe that there is something to be said for using that as one piece of many to determine what will actually get inducted into the final product. I do think that there are other factors to consider, like actual variety, that could play into it, and the voting results can be used as a baseline for determining stuff like that. But in the end, I don't really believe that one source of data should be or one source of opinions should be the end all when it comes to this. And I refuse to listen to that idea during this, because in my mind, I thought everyone was voting under the impression that voting was going to be the sole indicator of what made it into the set, when really that wasn't really, that wasn't officially ever really agreed on. I think there were just people who assumed it, but it wasn't really ever agreed on. And in the end, we kind of struck a compromise where we kind of ended up, Modhob was the one who ended up pushing back on that quite a bit. But in the end, we kind of discovered the merits of each other's points of view, and we settled on the middle ground of using the voting results for the levels that far and away did very well, to the point where we knew that they deserved to be in the set by that basis alone. But then after that, we could have more of a, lenient approach, if you will, to deciding what made it into, the remaining slots. And so that's kind of where the idea of the wild card round that I mentioned at the beginning and the mercy inclusions and all that came to be. One of the things I did enjoy about this set was the production cycle of it. Nowadays we have Skype, the CCLP1 staff, and now it's the CCLP4 staff, which I'm advising. I'm not really a part of it officially, like as a regular member, but both of those staffs have used Skype to communicate with each other, and I feel like instant communication is both a blessing and a curse. There's definitely a lot of benefits to it, but there's something to be said for just the documentation and the deliberateness, I don't know if that's the right word, of writing an email. And that's what we did on the CCLP3 staff, was we wrote lots of emails to each other. I still have those emails in my inbox, by the way. And I need to clean out my inbox. It's been like, oh my goodness, 10 years. I'm pretty sure it's 10 years. But anyway, it was really nice just to have have a nice permanent record of stuff, and all these thought out you know theses on why we should do voting a certain way, why we should induct levels into the set a certain way, what the titles of certain levels were. I shared about the which level was that? I think it was Vulcan. Did I share this about Vulcan? I'm not even sure, but back then it was actually no, I didn't share this. Back when I first created in my set, it was just simply called a cloning level, and then Modhov suggested a few titles for it. One of which was Pyrotechnique, spelled technique, not technic. And I ended up using that for another level in my set that was previously called Managing Directions. But then another suggestion was Vulcan, and I thought, that sounds cooler, kind of as a sequel to Neptune, I guess you could say. And I was like, just conversations like that were really cool. And, I know now the future staffs are, having really fun conversations of their own, on their endeavors, and I wish them well in that regard. I think that'll be really cool. But I'll always really treasure those memories because it was really the first time I led a group like that, especially considering that most of us were just all over the place. I mean, Peter Marks was in Australia, and Madhav was in India, and who else was there? Well, a bunch of us were in the U.S., but I want to say we had at least one Canadian. I could be remembering incorrectly, but I mean, coordinating time zones and having to respond to emails that come in overnight and just kind of waiting for things to happen when the times align right. It was just really fun to work with that, and it was a good experience for me just learning how to deal with different opinions and not forcing mine on everybody else, even though I struggled with that a lot. I struggled a lot with the whole concept of really taking other people's ideas into account and understanding their merits, and I made some mistakes along the way. I'm definitely willing to admit that, but overall it was a good experience. The set itself, I truly believe that CCLPs should not really be this hard. I don't think that there's entirely anything wrong with having a level that's as difficult as, say, Water Trap or even Vulcan, even though that's a super hyper difficult level. But I think you only need one or two of those in a set, not a whole slew of them at the very end like that. I mean, it was just exhausting recording these videos, and I can't even imagine what it's like for someone like Rock Generu to do a blind Let's Play of this the way he has been over the last few years. And really, that's kind of the tension that when it comes to building a CCLP that we have to face, and that is we're judging the levels on individual merit, and that's cool. But the thing is that all these levels are going to be put into a collective bundle, and that collective bundle is going to be judged very differently than the levels did individually. So that's where you can't just go by the voting results. You really have to think about, okay, what's this going to look like as a whole? Because when you're judging levels, you're not thinking in terms of a whole. You're thinking in terms of, this level is awesome, and if you have a bunch of really epic levels, it's going to get really tiring and really old really fast. And I think one of the biggest ironies of this whole set was that there were a lot of levels that had a lot of elements in them, like Modhav's levels, this past level that I made, just a lot of different things just crammed into every level. And it made, I think at the time, the general consensus was that, no, we didn't want to have super homogenous levels that people would get tired. We don't want to get something like Pain or On the Rocks like the original game had, so we need to put variety into the mix. Well, the irony of this was that we had levels with lots of variety, but with a lot of levels like that, the entire set felt really homogenous, and there wasn't a lot of variety. And that's not really a very good thing. So I fall into the camp of the CCLP3 had a lot of good levels going for it, but overall the set, I think, got dragged down by that constant need for everything to be so epic in a level. And we could have used a gentler difficulty curve. We could have used more of a measured approach to the end where we sprinkled some easier stuff in there. We had less difficult stuff. We may have chosen, maybe we should just table this level for CCLP4 if it didn't do so well here. just things like that. I wish we did that because it would have been way more enjoyable to play. And I hope the CCLP4 staff is able to achieve that balance a lot better than we did for that set. So, anyway, what are some of my favorite levels in this set? Just looking back on it. I would have to say, let's see. I'm just going through the editor here, so if my window looks inactive, which it should, that's why. First level I really liked. I like most of Joshua Bones' levels, and Thieves and Teleports, I'd have to say, is a good introductory level. One of my hopes for CCLP4 is that the set has a collection of introductory levels that would be way too hard for like a normal or a beginner's set like CC1 or CCLP1. Because this set I feel like just got right off into everything really quickly and didn't really ease into it that well. Redoubled Effort, one of my favorite levels ever. Again, another Joshua Bone level. It just flowed together so well. Let me do this here in this window because you guys are just seeing this blank thing. And whoops, that's the wrong one. This is the right one. So yeah, Thieves and Teleports, Redoubled Efforts. My Friend I enjoyed, but I think there are better levels. Let's see, what's the next great one? I know I'm just naming Joshua Bone stuff here. Mud and Water. This is to me is the epitome of how to do a dual themed level well. It just worked so perfectly, and the center room just connected everything together nicely with the teeth. I think Spiral is a little bit too long. I really like Vaydream a lot. I know that's not really an opinion that is shared by a lot of people, but I really do like it a lot. Ironically enough, we never actually got to see the real version of this level that Chip saw in this dream and in the drawings and stuff, so I think that's kind of funny. I really like Blue Moon. I think it's an elegant little maze type level. Every Trick in the Book is a long one, but it's one of my favorites that I made. And Get a Clue, definitely up there. Definitely up there. A lot of these first, like in the first third of the set, I think these levels were pretty decent. Pocket Puzzle, absolutely one of my favorite levels ever. If I'm ignoring stuff, it doesn't mean I don't like it. It's just that I'm trying to narrow this down to my absolute favorites. Let's see. I will say, Checkers. I did like this level a lot, and optimizing it was really, really interesting. Replay 2, also really cool. I love the implementation of that theme and just the way it was executed. Ollie Ollie Oxen. Pretty much everything from Alice voice in this set was amazing. Waste of Space, classic concept. Just love that level to death. Let's see here. Caves, another favorite of mine. I just love the idea. Just love everything about how it's made. I just love how you have to manage everything at the end. Lazy Hourglass, I think, is pretty cool. That's mainly just because I beat Pie Guy's record on it. So I'm kind of biased there. I'm sorry. I really am biased there. Stress Fracture, I think this is my absolute favorite level that I made for the set. And Obstacle Course, another one. Now we get into the levels that I'm like, these are getting to be a little bit too much. Commit Suicide I did enjoy, though. That was reasonable. We'll be right back. Okay, this is a good example of a level that's difficult, but aside from the time limit, I feel like it's manageable enough that if you sit down and just work out the solution, it eventually just comes to you. And when you figure it out, it's like, oh, it's not quite as hard as I thought. And Mud Pie I like. That's pretty much my favorites. So yeah, I really like this set a lot. I would give it maybe a 7 to 7.5 out of 10. I think it's decent, but it's not really the best of what CC has to offer in terms of variety. There may be individual products that are the best, but overall, I think the set as a cohesive whole didn't really quite match up to its predecessors. So anyway, that's my review of CCLP3. Next up on the list, I've got CCLP1 to go through, and I'm super excited about that because I'm looking forward to not playing something that's nearly this hard. I'll get to blaze through levels again. It's going to be fun. To be honest, CCLP1 is the set I'm the most proud of, so I think I'll feel a little bit more comfortable. And I will catch you on the flip side. So once again, my rants that I went on throughout the Let's Play and all my mistakes I made and all the silly things I did. I hope it's been fun to watch. I hope it's been fun to listen to. And I'll see you next time. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed yourself today. And take care. Thanks again for watching, guys. It really does mean a lot.